Now, sometimes we may have a value or we may have a question where, so this one was simple interest, meaning they only calculated interest once a year. But sometimes they may calculate interest multiple times during the year. And that brings us to this equation. Previously, we didn't use n because n was 1, since they did it every year. And they did it for 10 years. But let's say we have a question like this. It says, how much money will you have in 8 years? So our time is 8 years. At a percent rate, a yearly rate of 3.5%, so our rate is 3.5%. And then they said it's compounded quarterly. Quarter means 4 years. That means that they actually calculate the interest 4 times in a year. So it's compounded quarterly. So rather than just once every year, this is compounded quarterly. What that means, and this is per year, what that means is that we need to take this per year percentage rate and find out what the actual percentage is when they're calculating it each quarter. Since this is for the whole year, we're going to have to divide it by 4 to find out what the actual rate is each time they calculate the interest. So when we're plugging it into our equation, we have our initial value, and they say it's 8,000, so our initial value is 4,000, sorry. So we have $4,000 for our initial value. And then they're saying that we have to put our 1 to represent the 4,000. So our 1, what we're starting with, plus, because it is an interest, they're increasing it. They're saying how much will you have if you invest? Invest meaning they're going to increase your money. Our rate, which is R, 3.5%, we have to change it to a number. So 0.35, be careful. Move it 2 decimal places to get it as a percent. Over the number of times they do it in a year, 4 times, so that's over n, raised to the power of n, which is 4, times t, which is 8. Now you may ask yourself, why are we timesing 4 and 8? Well, because they're actually calculating the interest 32 times in that 8 years. The first year, they calculated interest 4 times. The second year, they calculated interest 4 more times, giving you 8 times. The third year, they calculated it 4 more times, giving you 12 times. So when they're done calculating interest, they've actually done it 32 times. So 4 times, 8 years. 4 times a year, 8 years. And because this is for the whole year, we need to divide by 4 because that's how many times they do it in the year. So now we're going to go ahead and use our calculator to calculate this. So first we're going to do what's inside the parentheses. Make sure you follow PEMDAS. I have 1 plus 0.035 divided by 4, close parentheses. And then I get 1.00875 raised to the power of 32. Now I have to raise that to the power of 32. Try not to approximate to the very end so that your answer is more accurate. So if you can, try not to approximate to the very end. So I get that. And then I multiply that by 4,000. And I get that at the end of 8 years, I'm actually going to have $5,286.08 because it is money. So this scenario happened that I invested $4,000 for 8 years at an interest rate of 3.5% per year, but it's compounded quarterly rather than just once a year. This is how much money I'm going to have. Let's do one more example so that you can see. If they say compounded by, let's just say if they say compounded twice a year or not bi-yearly, compounded twice a year or compounded quarterly or compounded monthly or compounded weekly, these are all different numbers, or compounded daily, these are all different numbers for your n. They all mean different things for your n. So I'm going to do one that's compounded monthly. So they said, how much money would you have after 7 years? So our time is 7 years. Time is 7 years. if you invested $12,000, so our initial amount is $12,000, and they said at 2%, so at 2%, so our rate is 2%, and they said it is compounded monthly. So compounded monthly. That means in the year, so this is 2% per year, even though they don't say per year, they say at 2%, that's typically per year, compounded monthly. So it is usually per year unless they state 2% monthly, 2% daily, 2% weekly. But if they just say at 2%, that's usually per year. Compounded monthly. So I'm like, okay, my initial value is $12,000, so I'm starting with $12,000. Now I have to put the 1 there to represent the 12,000. 12,000 plus my rate is 2%, so that's 0.02, but it's 2% for the whole year, but it's done 12 times a year, so divided by 12, raised to the power of 12 times 7, because it's done for 7 years, but 12 times a year. And then I take my handy-dandy calculator, and I make sure I do the order of operations. So 1 plus 0.02 divided by 12. And if you need to pause the video so that you can try to do it yourself so you don't know the answer. Raised to the power of 12 times 7. And then that times 12, 1, 2, 3 zeros. So now I have that at the end, I'm going to have $13,801.68. And just make sure you check on my math, because my math could be off. I use a calculator, but so that's how much I will have. If they say compounded daily, you would use 365 days. If they say compounded weekly, you use 52 weeks. If they say compounded monthly, you use 12. If they say compounded annually, then you're fine because it's 1. But if they say that they give you a rate of, let's say it's 2% per month, then you don't need to do this because they already told you what they're doing per month. So just be careful as to how they word the question.